This is episode 100 of the How to Quit Your Job podcast. I've been putting a lot of pressure on this episode because it's episode 100, and I thought it needed to be something really big, something really interesting for all of my listeners. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized what I actually need to talk about is something honest, something that I see all the time, something that holds us back, keeps us stuck, and makes entrepreneurship feel like an unhappy grind instead of fun and magical, even something that we might be doing and not even realizing. I'm going to talk about something that I still struggle with, especially as I hit this amazing milestone of 100 episodes. Welcome to How to Quit Your Job, the podcast for moms ready to ditch the 9-to-5 and build a life and business they love. I'm your host, Jenna Reichel. Let's go. Hi, mom friends. 100 straight weeks. Not a week missed in the last 2 years, even through a 12-week maternity leave where I pre-recorded episodes before my second son, Jude, was born. It's been an amazing ride so far, whether this is your first episode with me or whether you've been with me since the beginning. It's awesome. And I'll be honest, I felt a lot of unnecessary pressure as this episode was approaching. And I kept thinking that the content needs to be special. It needs to be something big, something brilliant, something worthy of 100 episodes. When I recorded episode 50, which I re-listened to in preparation for this episode and recommend checking it out if you haven't. But when I was recording that episode, my podcast team told me that only 7% of podcasts make it to 100. I don't know if that's still the stat. I don't know if it's changed, but that stuck with me. It felt like, okay, this is kind of a big deal if I can get there. And I'm here. And in the process, I found myself, again, trying to make this episode epic. But over the last few weeks, as I've been brainstorming and overthinking it, as all of us moms do, and also coming up with some great ideas and then writing them down, forgetting them in different ways. But in the whole process, it kind of dawned on me that this episode doesn't at all need to be epic. It needs to be honest and it needs to be helpful and it needs to show you that this is possible. So for today's episode, I'm in the midst of doing something epic, recording my 100th episode, and it's really easy to speed past the achievement. It's easy not to see myself as a podcast host. It's easy to downplay the accomplishment. And I know this happens to everyone else too. I know because I witness it when I'm with my clients. It's not that we aren't doing incredible things out there and achieving incredible things. It's that we really refuse to see them that way. We really do not take time to see ourselves as remarkable. And like I said, I know this pattern really well because I've lived it. And really the evolution of this episode is really my continuous struggle with this concept. I've always been the type of person who achieves something and then immediately moves on. I hit the goal and then it's on to the next thing. I earned 2 masters and never attended a graduation for either. I didn't even go to my undergraduate graduation. I remember when I graduated from my MBA program, my best friend and I went through it at the same time, and she wanted to have this joint graduation party. And I remember that feeling so foreign. It didn't feel worthy of a party, but I did it because I felt like I was also celebrating my friend. It was amazing. We had a silent disco. I loved every minute of it. And even in that moment, I didn't really take the time to celebrate my achievement because in my mind, when I achieve something, it's already done. It's already checked off. And suddenly it's not a big deal anymore. I remember wanting to do the MBA program, partly because I wanted to start a business, of course, but also because my entire academic career had been in psychology and counseling. And I really looked up to people who had a business degree and who were in my world. I looked up to those people. And I remember thinking that if I could do well and graduate with my MBA, then I would see myself differently. I would be different. I'd know that I was smart and capable. I'd know that I could do amazing things, right? And then as soon as I finished that degree, it was no longer remarkable to me. And every part of me wanted to do that with this podcast too, to say 100 episodes. Yeah, okay. What's next? To minimize it and focus on the next bigger goal. Since this one obviously wasn't big enough, since I was able to achieve it. And I know I'm not alone in that behavior and in that tendency. As moms and high achieving women, we don't give ourselves credit when credit is due. And not in a surface level way, like not credit in this way to go me kind of way. I mean, in a way that actually allows our identity to shift when we're doing these big things. We're doing things that our past selves would have been blown away by, and we're acting like it doesn't count or doesn't count yet. I want you to take a second and think about the version of you, maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Think about that version of you and really think, what would she think of me now? I know that the corporate employee version of me, the one who was so exhausted and lost, entirely lost in her career and her corporate role, would be so proud of me. She'd also be in absolute disbelief. Let's say you're still in corporate, because even if I think back to when I was in corporate, the undergraduate version of me that was worried about whether she'd be able to get a job or figure out what she wanted to do with her life, she would have been blown away that I had a big time salary job at a real company that had benefits. She would have been so impressed by my 401k. She wouldn't have known what that meant, but she would have been impressed. That past version of us would be so proud of where we are today. And yet, the present version of us gives us very little credit, very little celebration for what we've been able to achieve. I was talking to a mom in my mom entrepreneur circle last week. She had been laid off, so she started a consulting business in between jobs, and she landed a client. She worked with that client. She delivered for that client. And in this business group that I run every other week, she was talking about it like it didn't count, like she hadn't really started a business. And I see this all the time. There was a comment she made, and I had to actually stop her and remind her that she actually did have a business. She already worked with a client, but that's not the way our brain sees it in the moment. We downplay it. We pretend it's not real yet, as if there's a specific marker in the future or a specific amount of revenue or achievement or number of clients that all of a sudden gives us reason to celebrate. And it doesn't have to be just with business, right? That's my world. I see it all the time, moms discounting their business achievements, but it can sometimes be just our mom achievements. I remember when my first son, Adley, turned 1, and it was actually one of the first moments that I truly paused for myself and celebrated that I had been a mom for a year. Like, I truly celebrated it for myself. And of course, we celebrated him. But I remember it being such an important milestone for me. I made sure to celebrate it. But sometimes in our minds, these achievements only feel like they count once we hit some bigger milestone. And then when we hit that bigger milestone, it's no longer a milestone to us and becomes another drop in the bucket. So today's episode 100, is essentially going to be about celebrating ourselves. I want to talk about why we have such a hard time actually recognizing what we've done and accomplished. I want to talk about why that keeps us stuck longer than we need to be. It really gets in the way and gets in the way of us accomplishing those bigger goals. And I want to talk about a few simple ways that you can start shifting and showing up for yourself in a celebratory way, a way that brings more joy into your life, a way that brings more joy into the business process, or brings more joy into your career. And all of this is so that you can actually build confidence from what you're already doing and accomplishing, instead of constantly feeling like you need more before it counts. So we're going to start seeing what we are doing and accomplishing already as enough, and we are going to celebrate it. And we are going to see how that actually is a springboard for us to create more. Let's start with why we have such a hard time recognizing and celebrating what we've accomplished. So, one reason, and this is a big one, and there's so many layers, but it's this feeling of it's not enough yet. And I've talked about this a little bit already, but it's like we need to achieve more before we allow it to really matter. And I think this shows up in really sneaky ways, like the client I talked about, or like the mom in my circle. It's thinking that, yeah, I started the business, but I don't have consistent clients yet, so it doesn't count. Or I only had one client yet, so it doesn't count. Or I made money, but it's not enough to replace my income. So I'm not going to celebrate it yet. There's always this next level that we're using as the standard for whether something is worth celebrating. And until we hit that level, we almost act like nothing before it's valid. We act like it's nothing to write home about. And this is just a part of the process, not necessarily a milestone in the process. Another big reason is that we don't want to feel like we're bragging. We don't want to make other people uncomfortable. And I think this is especially true as moms and as women. We've been conditioned to be humble, to not take up too much space, to not make it about us. So even when we do something we're proud of, we downplay it. We say it quickly, we add a disclaimer, we make it smaller than it actually is. Because there's this underlying belief that if we fully own it, it might make someone else feel bad, or it might come across the wrong way. And so instead of risking that, we just don't claim it at all. And then there's this belief that if we shine too brightly, somehow it takes away from someone else. Like there's only so much success to go around. And if we're doing well, it means that someone else isn't. And logically, we know that's not true, but it still lives there. It still is within us. It still means that in a lot of ways we dim our accomplishments, or we don't talk about it, or we don't share it. We don't celebrate it. We keep ourselves a little smaller, a little quieter, because it feels safer that way. And so with these hesitations, really what we're talking about is we're worried about other people's opinions. I have a great episode on other people's opinions, and that's episode 89. Definitely check that out. But we care about what other people think, and we're worried about sharing our accomplishments, bragging, if it makes other people feel uncomfortable. The third reason that I really think we struggle with celebrating ourselves and sharing our accomplishments is that there's the goalpost that's always moving. And I think this is the biggest one, and it's a little bit tied to the first one, but this is so automatic, we don't even realize we're doing it. It's you set a goal, you work towards it, you hit it, and for maybe a second, you feel good about it. And then almost immediately, your brain goes, okay, but what's next? And the bar moves. And suddenly, what once felt like a big deal feels small because it's behind you. It feels like it's normal and expected, not a big feat. Just like I mentioned with my MBA and with this 100 episode milestone. But here's the problem with all of that. It's not just that we're not celebrating and taking in all the goodness that comes with having fun and sharing joy and being excited about our progress. It's that in all of these things, we're not letting anything count as progress. And when nothing counts as progress, no change really happens. At least not change that we can feel and that we can experience. Every mom I talk to wants to create some sort of change in their life. That's why you hire a coach. The bottom line is you hire a coach because you want to create change. So everyone I work with wants to create change. And if we are not counting and recognizing the small and large steps that we are taking and the things that we are accomplishing, we are not allowing that change to happen. We're not recognizing the change is happening. We're also not building the confidence that comes with it. Because the way we build confidence isn't by doing more. I mean, it's one way to build confidence, but really where we're missing it is that we're not recognizing what we've already done. Right? We want to let our brain actually register, wow, I followed through. I did something new. I handled that. Maybe even thinking of back to, like for me, thinking back to episodes, the first 3 episodes, like, wow, those first 3 episodes, if I can think back to coming up with the content and recording those and the process of everything compared to where I am now and who I am now, that's where confidence grows, is by actually recognizing what we've done. And when we skip over that, when we immediately move to the next thing, we move on to episode 101 and here's to the next 100, our brain never gets that evidence that we are already evolving. We have already evolved and changed and built confidence. And without that, we stay in this loop thinking that I'm not ready yet. I don't really know what I'm doing. I haven't done enough. Even when we have, like that mom in the circle, she had done the thing. She had worked with a client. She had created a business and delivered a lot of value. She was also trying a lot of other things too, which was really remarkable. And she still had this thought of like, I haven't done enough. I don't really know what I'm doing. And I think in that circle meeting, it was really powerful because we were able to mirror back to her, or not mirror, but reflect back to her that like, hold on, you have done enough. You have created a business. You have signed a client. All of these things are really remarkable and amazing. I almost saw like her shoulders drop in relief. Like, oh, really? Like I can just celebrate myself and recognize that I have done the thing. And it was a beautiful moment, us being able to recognize what she had accomplished and what she had done for her. Because when we stay in this loop of, I haven't done enough yet, I don't know what I'm doing, what that does is it keeps us playing small, and it keeps us really playing smaller than we actually are capable of. Because we're making decisions from a version of ourselves that feels behind, a version of ourselves that feels like she doesn't have the business, that feels like she hasn't accomplished anything, that feels like she doesn't know enough. That's the version of us that's making decisions, instead of the version of ourselves that clearly has already done hard things, has already figured things out, has already developed a lot of trust with herself. That's the version of us that we want to be making decisions. That's the headspace we want to be making decisions from. The one who recognizes all the things that you've accomplished and all the achievements you have and all the reasons why you're, excuse my language, a badass. Because every single mom I meet, I can call out all the ways that she should be so proud of herself. And so often, the mom on the other side of the screen doesn't see it for herself. And that's what actually slows everything down. It's not because we don't have a strategy. It's not because we aren't capable or don't have the ability, but it really is a lack of self-recognition, not giving ourselves credit for what we've already achieved and allowing that to be the motivation and the momentum for all of the next achievements, really the springboard. Because if you don't see yourself as someone, let's say, who follows through, you're going to hesitate before you start. If you don't see yourself as someone who can figure things out, you're going to overthink every decision. If you don't see yourself as someone who is already in motion, you keep waiting until you feel ready. And all of that stretches out the timeline of being able to accomplish these big, massive goals of really changing the landscape of our life, potentially leaving our job and starting a business and having more time with our family and spending our time in a way that fills us up. Without that proper recognition, it will keep you stuck in the space where you're doing all of the work, but not actually feeling like the person who is doing the work. Like you're not becoming the person through the work. And the truth is, the moment you start recognizing your progress as it's happening, everything starts to shift faster. You trust yourself more, you show up differently, you make quicker decisions, not because you're doing anything different, but because you're recognizing the things that you're already doing as remarkable. And it gives you a little confidence boost. You finally allow yourself to see who you already are as remarkable and amazing and capable and trustworthy and with so much potential to do amazing things. So this episode, it's a reminder for you, but as I've mentioned, also a reminder for me that we have to learn how to celebrate. I think of celebration as a really important skill for all the reasons that I previously mentioned. Obviously, celebration helps us grow, and it helps us to grow faster than we would if we just zoomed past the goalpost in search of the next. I want celebration to be something that we do, not just externally, but internally as well, in a way that actually supports our growth and evolution. Celebration is not this fun, luxury, nice thing to have. Celebration is a part of this whole thing. Even if you're not starting a business, right? Even if you're in corporate and you're trying to improve your metrics, or you are trying to build your executive presence, or even if you are a mom who's trying to be more patient with her kids, a mom who is trying to shave off that extra baby weight that's been just lingering forever. Whatever the thing is, we have to find the moments of celebration in the process. We have to pat ourselves on the back. We have to say good job to ourselves. It's nice if we have other people in our lives who can do that too, but we have to be responsible for that for ourselves. It's not just a nice to have. It's absolutely imperative for us to keep going, honestly, especially when things get so hard. So I want to talk about a few ways that we can do that. And the first one is both the easiest and the hardest. But the first one is that we can celebrate internally. This is the most important one. And I say it's the easiest because we can do it right now today. It's also the hardest because we have absolutely no accountability to do it. Meetings with ourselves, journaling, reflection, those things are sometimes the hardest things to do because there's not another person that we're accountable to. But this one is the most important one because you don't need to spend money. You don't need a party. You don't even need to tell anyone. You can just celebrate by truly recognizing yourself internally. And this might look like just pausing, maybe sitting with what you've done, journaling on it, but actually allowing yourself to feel proud, giving yourself a moment to feel proud and recognizing how special that is and how different that is than all the other run-of-the-mill feelings that you're going through each day. And I think this is part that most of us skip because it feels so unnecessary, like a luxury. And we immediately are thinking, I don't have time for that. I've got other things to do. But like I said, this is where everything shifts. The internal dialogue that we have with ourselves, the way that we are recognizing ourselves and our accomplishments and building our confidence and building up the evidence for all the things that we are capable of. The more we are recognizing that, the more we are internally talking about that with ourselves, the more that that's part of our self-concept, which is our story about ourselves, the more confident we are, the more capable we are, the more determined and motivated, and the more momentum that we build, all just from internally thinking about and pausing and recognizing the things that we've achieved. There's so much power in that pause, in that moment of letting your inner voice actually acknowledge that I did something here. I followed through. I showed up. Even if it felt messy, these 100 episodes have not felt crisp and clean. It didn't go perfectly. Even if, however you achieve something, it doesn't go perfectly. Even in the non-achieving, but the going for it, there can be celebration in that, even if it's something that someone else might think is small. If you know that it's important for you to celebrate it because of all the struggles that you've taken on to get there, then absolutely pause and recognize yourself for that and allow your identity to evolve and shift and your story about yourself to evolve and shift. Because that voice is the one that's going to build your confidence. It's not the next goal. It's not the next milestone. It's that voice inside of your head who recognizes you and what you're capable of and what you can achieve and what you've already achieved. So sometimes this can be like for tangible things. Sometimes this can be as simple as pausing and thinking, right? But maybe even taking 2 minutes at the end of your day, like maybe you're getting ready for bed, you're laying in bed and you just sort of close your eyes and you ask yourself, what did I do this week that I'm proud of? Or you hit a milestone and you sit in bed and you think about, what did I learn about myself in this process of hitting that? What did I have to overcome in order to accomplish that? I think even deadlines at work, right? I feel like that's a milestone, even though we don't love those corporate milestones. But pausing and celebrating the milestone of finishing a deadline or completing a project or finishing up with a client. Maybe it's like journaling after you hit a milestone, not just what happened, but how you showed up. Or even just sitting in your car, maybe after drop off for a minute, or maybe in line at pickup. And after something goes well, after you achieve something, letting yourself feel it in that moment when you're all by yourself, instead of immediately grabbing your phone and moving on and sending the next email or the text or whatever it is. Those are some ways that I really want us to think about celebrating internally. The second way we can celebrate is externally and outwardly. And I know this one can feel uncomfortable for all the reasons I said earlier, but sharing your wins does not take away from anyone else. It actually shows other people what's possible. It gives them permission. It helps them see, oh, maybe I could do that too. Look at her. And I think this is something we underestimate a lot. We think people are going to be judging us and have opinions about us, negative opinions about us. But when in reality, most of the time, people are inspired by us, or they're quietly thinking like, I needed to see that today. I needed to see a win today. That doesn't mean you have to go on social media and make some big announcement if that's not your style. I imagine I won't be posting too much about 100 episodes, but maybe I will. I don't know. But it can really look like texting a friend and saying like, hey, I did this today. I know I've met with 3 friends this week. I'm going to see a 4th one tonight. And some are entrepreneur friends, some are childhood friends. And everybody I've been just saying like, hey, I'm recording my 100th episode of my podcast this week. Some of these people forgot I even had a podcast and they're like, way to go. It's sharing a small win inside of my community, inside my network. And so you might have like a Slack channel you're a part of, a mom's group you're a part of, where you just say like, hey, I want to celebrate this thing today. I'm working on celebrating. I definitely recommend telling your partner, celebrating with them at the end of the day or middle of the day, letting them soak up some of the celebration. They are definitely going to be proud of you. Let them be proud of you too. Also, like letting your kids see you're proud of something that you did. Give them permission to be proud of themselves too. This type of outward sharing of our progress and of our growth, like when you start to share more honestly, those wins and growth and the evolution, you're creating connection. You're creating community. You also remind people that it's okay for them to celebrate too, that you're a safe space to celebrate. And this is especially important in the kind of work we're doing with entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship can really feel lonely. And when we start sharing more honestly, we create spaces where people feel like, okay, it's not just me. If your win maybe sends a message that you don't have that many clients or that you aren't making that much money, trust me, that honesty goes a lot farther than pretending your business is in a perfect space. Celebrating the win of one client when you've been in a rut for 3 to 6 months is so powerful and builds so much momentum and builds so much connection with other people. Being afraid to celebrate that in your business means that entrepreneurship is lonely. So first, celebrating internally. Second, celebrating outwardly with all the people in your life. Shout it from the rooftops. And the third way is actual tangible celebration, like the real fun stuff. Not that connecting with, like, I've loved my conversations with my friends, telling them about this week because they're more excited than I am ultimately, partly because of what I've shared in my struggle with celebration. But it's just so fun to see them light up and for them to feel great about celebrating me. So that's awesome. But then the third way, this actual tangible celebration, this is really the fun part. You don't need this part though in order to celebrate. You don't want to be going out to dinner every week for things in your life and business, right? You don't need this in order to celebrate. The internal piece, I would say, is the most important, but this is where you let it be real in your life and you really create a core memory for the milestone. One of my favorite movies is Inside Out, and I just love the concept of core memories. And this is where you get a chance to really build that core memory around your accomplishment. Sometimes, of course, if you're in entrepreneurship, you're not interviewing as much anymore, right? Thank God. But I tend to see that in situations where somebody's interviewing and they need to bring up maybe like a struggle that they overcame or something that they accomplished. We have to pull from these examples in our life. It's really hard to remember all the things that we accomplished if we're not being intentional about making them core memories in our life. And for a lot of us, we skip the celebration part entirely because we're busy, because life is moving so fast, because we tell ourselves we need to celebrate when it's bigger, or I'll celebrate later when it counts. And that time never comes. So if we want to create the core memory around this milestone, we need to find ways that align with us where we can truly celebrate. It doesn't actually have to be something we pay for. It doesn't have to be a big investment, a big deal, a spa day. It can be a fun outing with the family. It can be a break from your desk for lunch. It can be a song that you listen to in the morning and you allow yourself to dance. But we want to let things be celebrated in a real, tangible way. And like I said, it doesn't have to be anything over the top. It could be taking a morning off or taking a morning walk, ordering something you normally wouldn't, but that has been on your list, maybe like something you've been meaning to buy. You've been putting it off for the special moment. And maybe this is that time. Maybe it's playing a game that you love. I love Scrabble. And actually, at the start of this episode, I didn't actually know, and I was going to come clean that I don't actually know how I want to outwardly celebrate. But I think I'm going to make my husband play Scrabble with me, just since that idea came to mind. He rarely wants to play Scrabble with me, so it's a card I don't get to pull very often, but I think 100 episodes is one that he has no choice. He's going to have to play. But for this, it's less about what you do and more about the fact that you're marking the moment. You're making a core memory for this, and you're telling yourself, this mattered. This is worth pausing for. This is worth actually acknowledging in my real life and not just in my head. And again, all of this is so that you grow and evolve and your relationship with yourself changes. It's not just this constant grind of chasing the next thing. You're progressing, you're evolving, you're changing, you're accomplishing things. And this is so important too, like the actual outward, tangible celebration, because for us moms, we're so good at pouring into everyone else, celebrating everyone else, creating moments for everyone else. And this is a way to say, I matter in this too. I'm worth celebrating. So, as I mentioned, for my 100th episode, I'm going to make my husband play Scrabble with me. That feels just so good to me, which makes me a complete nerd. But I've also, like I mentioned, talked to people in my network this week. I've been letting them know that I'm recording my 100th episode. I think my husband didn't even remember until I mentioned it to him earlier today that this is the week that I'm recording episode 100. So I've been outwardly sharing it. I've been excited about it. I've encouraged all the people that I'm telling to celebrate with me by listening and leaving a review if they haven't heard my podcast yet. And I've been doing a pretty good job at the internal celebration as well, like really thinking about what this means, thinking about the last 100 weeks of creation, of development, of consistency, of all the things, all the lives that these 100 episodes have also impacted, because I love nothing more than people reaching out and telling me that they quit their job or they started a business or they took action just from listening. It really is the whole point of all of the time and energy I invest into this. So I'd love for you to share and let me know some feedback or what this podcast has meant to you. If there are things you've loved about it, if there's things you want to hear in the next 100, please email me, jenna@jenna.coach. I'd also love for you to go to the show notes, jenna.coach/100, to check out some of the other episodes that I referenced in this podcast. And I'd love for you to celebrate with me. If you've been listening to the podcast, whether you've been with me since episode 1 or you've just listened to a few, or if this is your first, I'd love for you to leave an Apple review. I'd love for you to share with me in the celebration. If you take a screenshot of the review and email it to me, again, jenna@jenna.coach, I'll send you a little gift in celebration of my 100th episode. So if you take anything from this episode, let it be this. Nothing that you're doing is too small for you to count or too small for you to celebrate. The way you start seeing yourself is what changes everything. And if you can learn to recognize your progress and your achievements as you're in it, not 5 steps later and not when it's perfect, but right now, you are going to move faster, feel more confident, and actually enjoy the process a whole lot more. So if you're struggling with this, know that you're not alone, as I've shared, but also know that my Mom Entrepreneur Circle community will hold you accountable to celebrate. We will celebrate you and recognize you for all the things you may not be able to see for yourself yet. It's completely free and we meet virtually twice a month. So check out the show notes for the link to register. Again, jenna.coach/100, which is crazy. Okay, have a great week. Spring is in the air. Follow the podcast. Help me celebrate 100 episodes by leaving a review. And definitely let me know if you do so I can send you a little thank you gift. I love you. Thank you for listening. See you next week. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of How to Quit Your Job, a mom's guide to creating a life and business you love. If you want to learn more about how I can help you stop making excuses and start making moves, head on over to www.jenna.coach. I'll see you next week.